All right. Welcome to this live event. I'm getting it all set up here. Thought I'd started a minute early to make sure my systems are all working, but it looks pretty good to me. So just making sure that everything is good to go. Should be. Let's see here. Thank you for joining me tonight. We're going to be talking about the CARP test and finding trustworthy sites on the internet. So should be good. Looking forward to it anyway, and we'll see how this works. So I'm just trying to get set up here. Give me just a second. Cool. I'm trying to turn on. I can watch it on one screen, so if you see me looking over here, it's because I'm trying to find the comments and stuff as it goes. Hopefully everybody can hear me okay. If somebody can give me a thumbs up or something that you can hear me okay. Audio's coming in clean. That'll help for sure. But so again, thanks for joining me. We're going to be talking about the CARP test today and how do you find trustworthy sites on the internet. We're going to get started here in just a few minutes. As soon as I can see that your audio is clean. Thank you, Kim. I think that's Kim on the other line. She's posting Isidoro today, so it's good to hear. Good to be here with everyone. It's exciting to be back. Sorry, just something flashed on my screen and it kind of freaked me out there for a second, but I think we're good to go unless something happened. But I think we're good to go. All right. So it's good to be back with everybody and looking at the CARP test today and looking at just how do we help kids understand trustworthiness on the internet. It's Chrissy. Thanks, Chrissy, for stopping by. Appreciate it. So we're going to be continuing to think about this and talk about this on where it goes and what it does and how things work as far as trustworthiness on the internet. And so I thought I'd get started today by looking at a couple different things. One, as I was kind of putting this together, I was thinking about, where does this fit in the bigger scheme of just the bigger scheme of education. And so as I was poking around today, I actually found the college and career readiness standards and started looking around. And this is the one that kind of popped out to me is the idea that there's a college and career readiness standard at standard 7 that says integrate and evaluate content presented in diverse media and formats, including visual and quantitatively as well as in the world. And to me, that's really what today's presentation is about as we start to think about the world that we live in today and how do we make sure that students are seeing and able to research deeply. And the way I wanted to get this started is as I was looking through the standards, of course, that is a college career readiness standard that's tied to a lot of standards, whether you're Common Core or whatever you happen to follow. But what we're going to be talking about a lot today is really no different than what we teach kids to do with real traditional books. And as I was thinking about this presentation, I kept coming back to this idea that, we were never really taught how to do any of this stuff because we were given a book like this in school and we were just taught to accept it as the truth. And what does that look like? We were taught how to read it and the different parts of it. And that's what we're going to go over today. But we were never really taught to really think about the trustworthiness of it. And how can we apply some of the same ideas that go with these to the internet as well? And so that's what we're going to be talking about today for the next couple minutes. And so the first thing I kind of want to talk about is the idea as we go through the CARP that the C stands for currency. So when was it published? Has it ever been updated? Any newer articles? Just some of those things around what's the idea of the currency of it. Now, the thing is with a book like this, we were taught to look at it. It was the copyright page, right? We all remember going into the library. And if you go to the front of any book, there's a copyright page that will tell you, when this book was published. This happens to be one I picked up. This is Classroom Management in a Digital Age written by our good friends Heather Dowd and Patrick Green. If you haven't read this one, it's a good one, but it's one I had sitting around today. But if I go in here and I look for the copyright page, I remember doing this in elementary school. It was published in its copyright 2016. Now, that's easy to do in the book world, like we were all taught that, but are we teaching kids to do the same type of thing when it comes to the internet? And so what I'd like to do is just kind of show you how you can do that. If we switch over here to my screen, and today I'm going to use the idea of the Oregon Trail, one of the favorite topics of mine to teach. And now this is really, I think, just a really good illustration of how this plays out. And so if we look at the Oregon Trail here, and I've just typed in Oregon Trail, which is what most kids are going to do, the first thing we need to look at is kind of some of the things we talked about that we've all been talking about through these Facebook Live sessions, and especially the one I was talking about before of how do you read this index page. So you'll notice right off the top, I would have students pause and look at, what do you notice here? We have award-winning games. We're not looking for a game, we're looking for research. We have Wikipedia, which isn't a bad place to start, so good to see that there. Underneath that, we have Wikipedia, the video game. We have the free streaming of the Internet Archive of the video game. It's all about the video game. Until we come down here to the last one above the top stories, where it says 9 things you may not know about the Oregon Trail. Now, there's a couple things that jump out to me about this right from the start. Number one, it has a number in the title, which makes me know what I'm going to find there. But underneath this, you'll also remember in our last Facebook, we talked about reading the index page. Here is the site that I'm going to be taken to when I click on this link. And to me, that is a really important information to have. I know that I'm going to history.com. Now, I might not know history.com, but at least I know where I'm headed. And underneath that, the very first thing we get in the snippet is published November 13th, 2015. So here, just by taking some time and getting kids to think about currency first, we start to find sites that have been updated recently. That's pretty recent to me, and I like that. Another thing we can do with students is you come up here and we click on Tools. When you're on a search result page, the Tools button is very handy. I can come over to any time, and I want information that has been updated in the past year. And you'll notice when I do that, I'm going to then look at my search results, and I'm going to see things that have been updated in the last year. So the Oregon Trail award-winning game was updated September 2nd, 2016, March 15th, 2017 for the Oregon Trail app in the App Store. But all of a sudden I get down here to almost 50 years ago, Oregon Trail Revolution Education Software. What did Oregon Trail teach us? There's marketplace.org, Business Insider. Now I'm starting to get somewhere. But you'll notice I'm looking at the date, right? July 31st, 2016. It's a great little thing to teach kids when it comes to currency, or students, is tools, and then we can look at a actual date range. Now, if I go back to any time, I'm actually going to come down here and I'm going to click on this 9 things you may not know about the Oregon Trail. So if I click on that, and I've opened it in a new tab here for you. Let's see if it switches over. What we're going to get now is we're taken to the History's website, right? And where we're going and what we're talking about here. Now, a couple other things when it comes to this idea of currency is we move to authority. So after we found that it's current, we start thinking about, is it authoritative? And so now that I'm on the site, I have some key things to look at to know if it's authoritative. Questions I start asking kids: who is the author, the publisher, or the sponsor of the source? What are their credentials? What are their qualifications? Is the author seemed qualified to actually look at this? And so as I switch back over here, here's the cool thing. I landed on history.com. Now, I don't know who owns history.com. We're going to find out here in a little bit who owns history.com. But right now I don't. But again, at the top, you'll notice I get a date, November 13th, 2015. That to me means that this is pretty relevant and up to date. And I like that for kids. I also get an author. And one of the things that I'm constantly talking about with students is, can you find an author on the internet? If we're going to ask kids that on the book world, the author is either written on the front, on the back, or it's on the title page. So when you're doing things like this, you can have students think about, what does this look like in the book or physical based world? And then what does this look like on the internet? Can you find the author of this book? Now, I remember doing this in elementary school when we went to the library, is we would go through these type of things. But I wonder how many times we're actually teaching this to kids when it comes to the internet. If the information is going to be good, it should have an author attached. It's one of the first things I tell all of my students that I do this with that we look for. If you can't find an author, find something else, because there's something not right about that. You should put your name on it. And when kids produce stuff for the internet, this goes back to Kim and Chrissy, what they were talking about, breaking down walls. Kids should be able to put their name on their stuff on the internet as well. It makes a difference. So you'll notice here, we can do a little investigation. If I flip back over to our history list, I now have Evan Andrews is the author. Well, now I have somebody's name. And now I need to look to see, does Evan have the credentials necessary to write about the Oregon Trail? And so I'm going to go ahead and just copy and paste. Oops, I didn't copy and paste the right thing for sure. Evan Andrews into Google. All right, so I'm taking the author's name here, Evan Andrews, and I put it into Google. Now, if I just put Evan Andrews into a Google search, I'm not going to get a whole lot. But if I add the word author after it, because I know that he's producing things, all of a sudden I start to see Evan Andrews who might be authors. And a great thing happens. I pop up with the Evan Andrews I'm looking for at history.com. But the very first link I find is at LinkedIn. Do you see this? And when I read the snippet underneath this, it actually says he's a writer and editing professional at the History Channel. Now I can open that new tab and I can find Evan Andrews on LinkedIn, and I can get more information about him. So here's writing. He's a writing and editing professional. He works for the History Channel. He graduated from Virginia Commonwealth University. I can see how long he's been working. He's a freelance writer, so he writes for probably other places as well, although he's been writing according to his experience for the History Channel from 2012 to the present. So 5 years he's been writing for the History Channel. I can actually confirm that by going back to the History Channel, and the History Channel has done a great job that if I click on Evan's name, I actually get everything that Evan has ever written for the History Channel. And all of a sudden now I can validate this idea of authorship. I can start thinking about and looking at some of these different questions that I would ask students when it comes to the idea of authenticity. You know, what are their credentials? Do we believe that him being in, having a writing degree from Virginia Commonwealth University is a good thing? Does that make him a well-off author? Are there any other experts in the field to look up? One of the things I like about LinkedIn is many times they are linked to other authors who are writing on the same topics. Now, I couldn't quite see that with Evan's profile, but it would be something that I would ask kids to do. Are there other sites or links to this site? And so we're going to get into some of this other stuff as we move forward. But again, the important thing here is these are the same skills we used to teach here. We just need to be teaching them on the internet as well. And so you find the author of the book, you find the author of the website. Here's the difference that I find interesting though. When I was in school, we were asked to look up the author of a website. We were never asked to do a background check on the author. I wonder, it'd be really interesting that if you could find the author of your textbook, could you have students do a background check on the authors and editors of your textbook, as you would do the same for any website I would have kids use on the internet? Just an idea as you start to bridge, our old teaching world with this new teaching world. Now, after we look at authority, we start looking at reliability. Are there any obvious falsehoods that you can see? Has the information ever been reviewed by other experts? We can look for things like reviews on a website. So here's one of the things that I find really interesting. If I was going to take this book that I have here with me. So this book is the one that was written by Heather Dowd and Patrick Green. It's just called Classroom Management in the Digital Age. We can look for reviews of things, including reviews of books. So when we have students actually looking for books online, and the idea of looking for information about how good or trustworthy that site is, not only can we read reviews that might be reviews for, say, a website, or we look at the comment section of a website, but we can do the same for books. I wonder how many teachers have students when they're choosing a book to read, much like we choose a website to read, that we would actually have them come to a website, say like Amazon, and think about looking at the reviews. This book happens to be rated 5 stars, and it has 34 reviews by customers. And I can actually jump down and see those reviews right here. Now I have students starting to think critically about the information that we trust. We know the author, we know the date, we're looking for reviews from other people. And all of a sudden, we're starting to build a capacity of understanding on why we trust these websites. So we look for citations and references to support the information given. Now, one of the cool things that I found on the History Channel that I thought was pretty cool about this is if I'm on the History Channel, and I'm going to go back to our page about the Oregon Trail, you'll notice down the left-hand side, I can't find anywhere where Evan in this article actually links out to other resources to know if he's telling the truth. It's kind of hard to see, where he got his information from, which it could be a red flag, but I also can do some background on the History Channel, which we're going to do here in just a second. But down here at the bottom, this is an interesting little thing. I don't know if you can see this on the screen. It's pretty small, but it says, there's a little section here that the History Channel has that says fact check. We strive for accuracy and fairness, but if you see something that doesn't look right, contact us. And there's a link for you or your students to say, look, I don't know if this is true. Can you help me understand what is being said here? Another quality piece of knowing that I'm looking at a good, reliable website. The other thing I like about history.com is if you come over here to the left, there's a little cite button right below the print button. There's a cite button, and it'll actually pop up the article details for you. It'll give you who the author is, the website name. So if you wanted kids to take this information and put it in a reference, all of that information is given for you right here in the cite section. So that's a pretty cool little feature too. I don't know, they even gives you the URL directly to the website. It was accessed on May 11th. It's the day that I've accessed it. Oh, and look at this. The publisher, A&E Networks. Well, that's interesting. I'm on history.com, but it says that the publisher is A&E Networks. And that takes us to when we start talking about the purpose and the point of view, we can start thinking about what is the purpose. So this is the P in CARP. What is the purpose? Is it to sell something, persuade you? Is it informational? And all of a sudden, we can start thinking differently about the point of view that we're getting and whose point of view are we getting from a website. So one of the things that I like to talk to students about as well is the importance of different websites. So if a student finds himself on a blog, blogs are opinion writing, and we teach kids opinion writing, and we have kids write opinion writing all the time in schools. Do we have them go out and search blogs and understand that blogs many times are opinions, not facts? Do we have them go look at news sites that are nonfiction based, that are based in factual information, and have them even double check the facts that are being written? And so when we start thinking about this purpose, we can also start thinking about how you use the internet to do this as well. So if I go back over to my history.com website here, I noticed that under site, it said the publisher is A&E Networks. Well, I can confirm that, and I can confirm who owns this information by doing a who is lookup. And the easiest way to do that is if I go to Google and I type in who is history.com, it will give me a history list. So who is a database of who owns every website on the internet. And so when I click on the who is, it's going to take me to whois.com, where I get to see the information about this website. I can see when it was registered. So crazy to think that history.com has been around since 1994. I can tell you when that expires, so when that license runs out. But underneath here, I can see who is the registered contact, and it says the organization is A&E Television Networks. If I wanted to, I could have kids then dig deeper into who is the organization that actually owns this website. Now let's do that again. Let's do a who is the Dog Island, which is the website I used in my last Facebook. You can go back and watch that if you'd like here on our Facebook page. But I did the Dog Island as a fake website for students. I could have students go in and look at the who is information and who's this company that owns this website. And all of a sudden we have a reference link that is going to another company, and I can go out. I've never heard of this company before. I can come down here. I get an address of where this company is. I get an email address that if I would like to, I could email this company and say, who are you? What are you about? I get the organization that's savvystudios.com. And here's the thing. Earlier today, when I was preparing for this, I went to this website and I don't know. It doesn't give me a whole lot, So all of a sudden, I'm looking at the Dog Island. I'm looking at trying to verify that website for students. And next thing I know, by doing a little digging around, that the company that published that article really has nothing to say about it. There's nothing there further for me to do. Now, if we bring that back again to the way that we do books, if I take this book in the real world, I can have kids look up the publisher of this book. Who published this book? Where did this book come from? What do we know about the publisher of this book? So again, these things, things we've always talked about in the book world apply, very much the same to the digital world as well. We just need to help students make those connections as they go through. So to run through this one more time, just real quick as we wrap it up here, is that first of all, this is in our standards. We need to be teaching kids how to evaluate content in a variety of purposes. Today we were focusing a lot on text, but you can do this with images. You can do this with video. There's all kinds of ways. We were also talked about this idea of going through then the CARP test. What's the currency of it? When was it published? We can see that by going to Google, doing your Google search and going to tools and any time, or we look for a date on the website itself. We can also then look for, we look for the authority. Who's the author? Who's the publisher? And so we can take kids through these tests to help them understand, does it have any authority? What's the authority behind it? What's the reliability? All questions that students should be asking themselves. Again, not just about about information on the internet, but about books in general. We need to start understanding that, books that are out of date are no better or no worse than websites that could be out of date. And lastly, but least, what is the purpose or point of view of this as we get through this? So lucky for you, we've got all of this stuff for you in some links here at the end as we wrap this up. Thanks everyone for joining me. I see that Robin stopped by and Sarah is here. Appreciate it. Kim and Chrissy from afar joining as well. But on the screen now, you should be seeing some of the websites that you can go to. There's a great blog post that was written, I think, by Kim. Kim wrote the blog post about the CARP test. And there's also our free PDF that talks about giving you even more information, more ideas of how students use this in their classrooms. So it's just, it's not new. It's just something that we've forgotten to do along the way. And I think if you can tie this back to books in general, not only do we help kids appreciate books and understand how to read books in a way that we were all taught in school, but it also helps students to make that connection to what happens in the physical world is what happens on the internet as well. So I hope that was worth your time and effort. Again, this is all recorded. You can go back and watch it. And again, as I leave, I'll throw those links up there on the screen for you. There's a blog post there for you to read. And then of course, our free PDF of the week that you can get out of it as well too. So thanks again for stopping by. And we'll see you next week. Really appreciate it.